Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Tonight we have a late night insight video on a designer, actually a discontinued gem designer, because this entire fragrance line from the house of Robert Graham is actually discontinued. And today we are going to talk about a fragrance called Valor. Now, Valor showed up on my doorstep maybe within the last month or so. This was a very kind, generous decant from, I believe it was Andrea. If it was somebody else, I apologize. But whoever my fragrance god person was that sent me this, thank you very much. I've had a chance to wear it to bed now 3 times. You can see the juice is right there now. So I've put a pretty good dent in this little decant. And I've enjoyed getting to know it. I'll read you the little blurb. We'll talk a little bit about it. And we'll talk a little bit about the house in general. So this particular one is the bulldog. Each one has like a spirit animal attached to it or something. The one that I own and my favorite from the bunch is called Valor. Sorry, Fortitude. We're doing Valor today. It's called Fortitude, and its spirit animal is the ram. Go figure. I think since these are discontinued, someone mentioned this should be the logo for your channel, Ramsey. It says knowledge, wisdom, and truth. So I like this. I like this. I wonder if they'd come after me if I use this since this is discontinued. Probably would. But anyways, so for Valor, it's the bulldog. So here's what they say. Robert Graham Valour, the art of audacity and boldness for the loyal and the dynamic. The bulldog has always been a symbol of fierce individuality and willful intelligence, a fitting way to top off such a determined essence, housed in a faceted decanter and finished with a foulard print. This bottle gives a nod to the well-dressed modern gentleman. Modern's the key word there. This blended essence walks the line between fresh and symboritic, which I had to look up. Apparently it means fond of sensuous luxury or pleasure, self-indulgent. So it walks the line between fresh and symboritic, mixing top notes of clary sage, coffee, and amber woods to give it the epitome of eclectic sophistication. And all 3 are discontinued, as I said. We'll talk about Fortitude very soon, hopefully, on the channel. But all 3 also only have 3 notes. And there's a lot of kind of, there's a theme that runs through all 3 fragrances, which we will definitely talk about. But so the note listing is extremely simple. And in a way, it's a simple fragrance. Parfumo has Brazilian coffee, clary sage, and amber woods. Harry Frémont of Firmenich is the perfumer. We'll talk a little bit about that. But so when I spray this, and again, this is a late night insight video. I don't own a bottle, so this is just kind of my initial impression, if you will. But the first thing that pops into my head is there is this smell of this designer scent, okay? There's like a fresh designer feel to the fragrance. And it's funny because my brother Rich Mitch just did a video about basically designer perfume being dead. He reviewed the new Amen flanker called Phantasm. Apparently it was phantasmically awful. I don't know. But I was thinking about this whole designer perfume being dead thing. And part of me was wondering how much of it is the designer perfume market sort of steadily crashing into the mountain, and how much is it as, you know, frag heads that we've smelled more and more and more, and higher end niches and rare vintages and all this stuff, and that we've grown throughout the years. You know, as we've smelled, maybe our noses have kind of changed and gone away from some of the designers we thought were so amazing earlier in our journey. I don't know, just something I was kind of thinking about. But I haven't smelled Phantasm, so I can't speak to how shite it is. It's probably as bad as he says. But this is one such example, I think, of a pretty well-made designer scent, okay? And I would love to collect all 3. Like I said, I've got 1 full bottle, and this is probably one of my favorite Tonka scents in my whole collection, as far as an example of a well-made Tonka bean and patchouli and stuff like that. But there's another one in the line called Courage. And apparently all 3 can be had at discounters for like $60 each. For 100 mils, it's not bad at all, especially since they're discontinued. So the first thing you're going to notice is this freshness. It's slightly peppery, slightly zingy. I wouldn't be surprised if there were some spices in here that weren't listed. But the first thing you're going to notice is this coffee note, okay, but a very designer coffee. I have to really specify that. It's a real designer coffee mixed with clary sage, okay? So those are the 2 main notes in the fragrance initially. And what it ends up reminding me of is a much less sweeter version of something like Rochas Man. Rochas Man is much more playful. You can just tell by the damn bottle. It's a lava lamp or whatever else you can use your imagination on. But for Valor, Valor is a little bit more dressed up. It's still a designer, okay? It smells like a designer. I can't stress that enough. But it's a little bit more dressed up. It's like for the man that wants to take the next step in designer fragrances, but they don't want to jump straight to niche or start going down the vintage rabbit hole. They just want something a little bit more professional, a little bit more suited and booted. Okay, that's the way that this smells to me. It still has that designer DNA, a little bit more suited and booted. So the Brazilian coffee note is interesting. If you know anything about coffee from different regions, Brazilian coffee is known for its kind of low acidity and full-bodied feeling and dark roast character, okay? So, and apparently Brazilian beans are known for having notes of caramel, nuts, chocolate, spices, and they're supposed to be less fruitier than some of the other coffee beans, okay? So the coffee note here is creamy and rich, but if you watch some of my reviews of some of the artisanal coffee fragrances like Ensar's Rumi or Aris Ladore Oud Luwak, which if I was going to spend my own money on a coffee fragrance right now, June 23rd of 2024, I would buy one of those two, probably the Aris Ladore if I could find it at a respectable price. That's the kind of coffee fragrance that's a little bit more bold, a little bit more daring. That combo of oud and coffee speaks to me much more. You know, that's like the imminent coffee fragrance for me. But with all that being said, if you gave me a bottle of Valor, I would wear it because it's not one of those fragrances that I'm like, oh, it's shite designer, I can't wear it. No, I would still wear this. I think Harry Frémont made a really well-made example of a designer fragrance in 2016. This came out, by the way, if I didn't mention. I could easily wear this to the office or a date or something like that. It's very likable. It has that designer mainstream charm about it. You know, it has just that smile about it. Without being disgustingly sweet, which so many designer fragrances go down, and without being a blue fragrance. That's the other thing. That blue cop-out thing that they do nowadays and being disgustingly sweet. There is some sweetness here. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a touch of vanilla that's not listed, okay? But it's well balanced. It's well balanced and it's well blended. That's really the main thing to take away from this for me. And the other thing is the amber woods don't turn to stinking amber woods. It's very easy, I think, for amber woods to go in that disgusting amber wood, and you start thinking, okay, this is cheap. They just copped out and used amber woods because it's a cheap material that can fill up a lot of space. It didn't go down that route, which it can easily do, in my humble opinion. Amber woods easily go down that route if they're used by a perfumer who doesn't know what they're doing. So I think Robert Graham did something that was kind of very smart, in my opinion. They hired 3 big names to do these fragrances and show them to the world. So basically they gave each perfumer a brief, okay? So Harry Frémont got Valor, Alberto Morillas got Courage, and Elias Hermendez got Fortitude, which is the one that I'll try to review very soon if possible. And if you noticed, all 3 perfumers are Firmenich perfumers, okay? But they all got the brief, and they all got the simple fragrance brief with 3 ingredients, 3 notes that were going to be listed. So they obviously signed a deal with Firmenich for these 3 perfumes. And I think it's a shame they got discontinued because I really do think these are good examples of, let's say, well-done designer fragrances, which the designer fragrance game, I feel like, is in a little bit of a... It's in a funk. It's in a lull, whatever you want to call it. It's a lot of filler. It's a lot of empty filler, and it's a lot of repeat copying. There's very little ingenuity in the designer space. Everything has gone to the high-end or super high-end niche, whatever you want to call it, because that's where these brands are making their money. Even the brands like L'Oreal and Puig and these big brands that own a lot of different brands, even ones that have designer names, they're focusing their attention, it feels like, on the niche houses because that's where they're making their money, charging $250, $350 a bottle. So, but if you think about sort of this designer space, if you will, and just in general the designer style roasted coffee, so the fragrance smells of freshness and this designer style roasted coffee with the freshness and herbal feeling of clary sage. Clary sage gives off this herbal dryness, if you will. I'm always reminded of like leaves that don't have enough water in them, or they're not moist enough, and when you grab it they crinkle and just kind of fall apart. They almost turn to dust. Clary sage gives me a little bit of that dryness, but I think the undertone of the amber wood / vanilla, whatever is being used here in the base, gives it that slight designer sweetness feel without being too sweet. It doesn't cross that line to disgustingly sweet for me. So the clary sage here smells both herbal and floral at the same time. And clary sage can sometimes have a couple undertones. One I get here and one I really don't. One is this leathery undertone. Sometimes I can see a slight leathery undertone here, which I like, and maybe that pushes it from mediocre to a like for me. But the other thing that clary sage can sometimes give is this very sweaty undertone, almost like sweaty armpits, sweat-soaked shirt. It can give off this very sweaty undertone. It's similar to cumin in a way without having the funk of cumin. But here, since it's a designer, it almost feels like they engineered this fragrance to remove the sweatier aspects, if you will, and the leathery aspects are what comes through in bits and pieces, staggered, if you will. Sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. Again, I've only worn it 3 times, and so with so much perfume to talk about, there's only so much time and attention you can give to something like this. But if you can just imagine, here's an image for you, okay? Imagine like walking into a coffee shop and you get that hit, right? That roasted coffee hit when you enter the coffee shop, and then some young guy walks by you wearing some designer scent, and all of a sudden the blend, like your brain mixes the two together. The young guy walking by with that designer scent and the Arabica beans being processed in the back, okay? And just imagine like blending those two smells together. So again, I'm a fan, okay? I like the fragrance, but as a hardcore frag head, I will say the more and more fragrances that you smell, the more and more fragrances, or the more and more it takes to impress you is kind of what I've noticed. And for me, I think if you just blindfolded me and said, smell this, Ramsey, I'd probably say exactly what I said and then say pass, okay? But this is where the other side of collecting perfume comes in. When you go from just a pure consumer where you want to wear the fragrance to I want to have a perfume collection with different things and all that stuff in there, different brands and all this stuff, and sometimes you want to quote unquote complete a particular brand. And so the collector side of it starts to come in, especially when it's discontinued, especially where you can still find bottles for very cheap like you can now. So I think if this wasn't discontinued and I didn't have the collector mentality that I did, this would be a pass. Because I'd say, I've got so much better quote-unquote fragrances to wear. What do I need this for? But I think it would be cool to complete the Robert Graham collection, if you will. And so for me, you know how much I love collecting discontinued fragrances. If I had the ability to, if it wasn't for the fact with the divorce I can't buy any fragrances, I would buy this right now. Because I think there are bottles on fragrancebuy.ca for like $60 for 100 mils. That's a great deal in my opinion. Especially for something discontinued, that once those all sell out, it's like I was telling folks with Furio. You used to be able to find Furio on fragrancebuy.ca for $24, $20 or whatever it was. And then as soon as those sold out, all that was available was the ones on eBay for 180 or whatever it is now, 160, 200. And so the collector side of me would say it's a good enough deal to grab all 3 of these Robert Graham fragrances now while I could. I just can't buy anything right now. But if I was blindfolded and I was going just off of the juice, I would probably pass. This would be a pass for me. So now the big bad boogeyman. Let's talk a little bit about the amber wood note, because I like what they did with the 3-note pyramid thing. In each fragrance, there's only 3 notes listed. They're going for simplicity and quality and all that stuff, right? But I think they're playing a little bit coy with the note listing, in my opinion. I get more than just what's listed in the Robert Graham official note listing. Is it a simple fragrance? Sort of, but I also get things like that peppery punch in the opening, which very well could be pink pepper, it could be black pepper, or a mixture of the two, I don't know. But that peppery opening, and I also get lavender. Lavender is the note that if you said, Ramsey, you get one shot at one more ingredient outside of the 3 listed, I would say lavender. Lavender is the one that comes to me almost from the beginning. It lasts throughout the dry down. I get a lot of this herbal lavender feel. That could be the clary sage because it's also herbal and floral, which are very similar ways to describe lavender and clary sage. But I get both, and definitely I think there's some lavender in here. I would guess. I saw something that said lavender's in like 50% of all masculine fragrances. And so it's probably an easy guess to guess there's lavender in here, but it really does give off this lavender herbal feel. Yeah, I mean, that would be an easy guess for me. And I think in the base, maybe there's some patchouli or sandalwood or something like that, merging everything together with the amberwoods. Because honestly, smelling this, if you just put this under my nose, I may pick out some things, but amberwoods would not be what came to mind, to be quite honest. I wouldn't smell this and go, oh my God, stinking, disgusting amberwoods. No, I think so many fragrances nowadays use amberwoods in one way or another. And especially in 2016, I don't think Robert Graham was aware of the stigma that amberwoods would have later on as the years ticked by. So they listed it as a note listing because I didn't think they thought it was a big deal back then. Today, I doubt you would get a fragrance released in 2024 that listed amber woods just as a note like that, because now there's this stigma attached to amber woods. And so, in my opinion, amber woods back then wasn't the big bad boogeyman that it is today. And I think it's really up to the experience and the professionalism and the quality of the perfumer creating the fragrance. And I really do think that our friend Harry Frémont is an amazing perfumer. He's done some fantastic stuff. There will be more Harry Frémont reviews soon. And actually, if I haven't done a Harry Frémont perfumers portfolio video, this may be a great time to do such a video. So I think he really gave us an example of what a high-class designer fragrance can be while using amber woods and using them properly in Valor. So one thing I will mention in closing is that it is stereotypically masculine. I still think a woman could easily wear this, but I think this is like the stereotypically masculine designer. Again, think back to the image of walking into the coffee shop while the guy walks past you with a designer fragrance on, and merging those two smells. And that peppery freshness that you get in the opening is also a big part. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if the pepper, pink pepper, black pepper made some cameo appearance here in one way or another. All in all, a solid fragrance. I'd love to add to the collection for the collector side of things. You know, I don't think the fragrance itself moved me enough to run out and go buy a bottle. But, you know, I'm still happy I got a chance to review it. So thank you to my perfume god people who sent this along. It's always a pleasure. I can put this in the reviewed bucket, and now I only have like 889 more fragrances to review. But anyways, all jokings aside, if you've smelled any of these Robert Grahams or Valor in particular, I'd love to hear your thoughts. So I always love the interaction, the back and forth in the comments. So as always, do leave a comment if you watch. Let me know what you think. Appreciate the feedback. Cheers, guys, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.